This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Introducing Meta Ray-Ban Display, the world's most advanced AI glasses. With a full color display built into the lens of the glasses, it's there when you need it and gone when you don't. Send and receive messages, translate or caption live conversations, collaborate with Meta AI, and more. Be one of the first to try Meta Ray-Ban Display. Visit meta.com/Meta Ray-Ban Display to book a demo and find your pair.
All right. Welcome back.
MisFitNation, the MisFitNation show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by two veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, Stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. It's Tuesday. But first, let's pay a little homage here this evening. Sergeant Thomas Duran, El Reno Police Department, Oklahoma. End of watch, Friday, October 24th, 2025. Deputy Sheriff Andrew Nunez, San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office, California. End of watch, today, Monday, October 27th, 2025. Let's keep both their friends, their families, their communities in your thoughts and prayers as they go through this sudden change. But tonight, that's right, tonight, I'm going to bring you a great show with the Misfit Nation, presenting a little thing we call the ToosDay Crue. And as the ToosDay Crue comes here, this is the final ToosDay Crue of October. And we're going out swinging. Leaves are falling. Yes, gentlemen, it's wet and cold here. The fire's getting hotter. All month long, the crew's been bringing that heat, that grit, that pure misfit chaos. And tonight, they're cranking the dial to 11. So buckle up, grab your drink and lock in, because this one's going to be loud, be wild, and straight up legend. Wait for it, dairy. You know who it is, the kings of Tuesday night, the heartbeat of the Misfit Nation, Steven and Jake. Let's bring it on, boys.
What's up, Steven? Good evening, Mr. Jake. How are you?
I am good. I am good. I'm in a good mood. Got my flatbed put on my pickup truck today. Got it all bolted down, welded down, wiring harness all fit in it. Everything worked when I turned the switch, so it's good to go.
Now, is it going to lift or anything, or is it just for you to
No,
store me
no,
and
it's just
things?
a flatbed. I didn't put any hydraulics in it or anything like that.
Oh, okay. You going to put rails on the side, or it's just going to be stay flat the way it is?
I'll stick a 2x6 down each side of it in case I'm hauling something that I need to keep on there. But other than that, it's just going to be flat.
It's looking pretty amazing.
Well, thank you. How was your Tuesday?
It was good. Did the usual laundry, shopping. Yeah. Looking forward to tonight's guest and getting him in here.
Well, I am too.
About him.
Matter of fact, let's do a short little introduction here. Jim Paulk, he is a former submariner, Annapolis class of 1957, and he went from there, worked for Procter Gamble for a little bit, did some stuff with conservation that I thought was pretty interesting. I'll let him tell about all that. And then he wrote some books, and I've also seen him on a podcast. And I tell you what, to listen to this guy tell a story, he gets you in it. I can tell that he's from Georgia. I really can. He at first I thought it was going to be the second coming of Jerry Clower, but anyway. Without any further ado, let's welcome Jim Paulk in here.
Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it.
How you doing this evening, Jim?
I'm doing great. I'm always doing great.
Good
To
deal.
see you.
Good deal.
Yeah.
We didn't give much on your biography, anything. Just told about you went to Annapolis and that you was from Georgia. But why don't you kind of fill in some blanks for us and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I was born in Brunswick, Georgia, which was a small town back in 1933 in the height of the Big Depression. And we lived about 10 miles outside of town. My mother had to flag down the train to get to town if she wanted to get groceries. And but we moved to town when I was 4, so I could go to school because the school buses didn't run out that far. And but anyway, Brunswick was a very small town, about 10,000 before the war, and then during the war they built Liberty ships there, and the town grew to 60 or 70,000 people. And our schools went to 2 sessions. They built lots of houses on every vacant lot in town for house people. So it was a busy time, an unusual time for us, and then I graduated from high school there in 1951, and went to North Georgia College in Dahlonega. I had wanted to get an appointment to Annapolis, but I didn't get in out of high school. And looking back on it, I'm doggone glad I didn't, because I was not mature enough and not smart enough to get in out of high school. But going to North Georgia, which at the time was a full-time military school, very small school. And so I went there, and I thought it'd be for a year and then I'd get my appointment, but it didn't get there. So I went back for another second year there, and which was really good for me because I needed the academic background that I got there. And I still didn't get my appointment, and I thought I was going to end up maybe going to Georgia Tech, where a lot of my friends had gone. And I was playing a golf tournament somewhere in Georgia, and a friend of mine from Waycross, Georgia, a nearby town, came running out of the golf course. Jimmy, your mother called. You got to call home. You got to get home immediately. And I said, well, I'm not walking off the golf course in the middle of a match. I'll call her when I get done. So I called home, and Mom said, you have your appointment to Annapolis. And I said, oh, wow.
Awesome.
She said, but you've got to get home. We got to get you down to Mayport in Jacksonville so you can get your physical and get over that. And then you got to report to Annapolis in a week. So there wasn't a lot of time. It was just run, run, run. And then I got to Annapolis at the end of June in 1953, and there were 1,160 of us that night. And there was no responsibilities at that time because we weren't sworn in until the next day. And so everyone's running around. Where are you from? What do you do? And it seemed like to me that everybody there had graduated valedictorian, were president of the class, and were captain of the football team. And I'm saying, I'm none of those things. What am I doing here? I was in awe of my classmates. I have to tell you, I was so impressed with them, and which is kind of the reason that I ended up writing a book about them, because I was so impressed with them. But I graduated. I got married the day after graduation, and we went out to the West Coast in San Diego. And my wife and I had never been to the West Coast, so we took Route 66 across the country and enjoyed it, and found an apartment, and went to Portland, Oregon, and back to San Diego. And then I went to New London to submarine school, and then to a submarine in Norfolk. And then we were Philadelphia for a while and back to Norfolk. And then I left the Navy after 5 years, but I stayed in the reserves. I served 5 years additional in the reserves as a submarine officer, and then went to work for Procter Gamble and was with them for 26 years, and then retired. And then I was asked to do marine conservation work, and I didn't really want to do that because I wanted to start a kind of a consulting company with a bunch of other retirees and just have fun, not to make money, but to work together and do things. And they talked me into it, and I ended up doing that for 9 years. And I think the main thing we did, first of all, is that we had to pass an initiative, get rid of the gillnets in California, which were destroying a lot of the fisheries there. Gillnets have a just big wide net, and the fish swim in them into and get caught in their gills, and they die, and the seals eat them, the sea lions eat them, the sharks eat them, and they all get tangled in it too. It's really it was a bad process. But I was told that we needed to get about over 600,000 signatures to get it on the ballot, and we had 5 months to do it. So cool. I had a group of people of about 20 eclectic boats. We were everything in there, from charter boat skippers, people that just went to a certain tackle store. And I told them, I said, look, I've been asked to do this, but if you guys would be willing to help me, but put your lives on hold for 5 months, and we're all going to bust our rear ends for 5 months to get this on the ballot. If you will agree to do it, then I will agree to do it. And so we set about getting signatures, and we were everywhere. And with signatures, you have to get some that are paid and get people paying. And in order to do that, you have to create the perception of success, and that's what we did. And we got the signatures. We got it on the ballot, got it passed 53 to 47, which is a huge win in California.
Yeah.
And then I was asked to start a fishing conservation organization. I said, wait a minute. I said, that wasn't part of the bargain. But I said, okay, we'll do that. So we got involved with doing other conservation projects, and we worked with SeaWorld Research Institute in San Diego to raise fish to put back in the ocean. And it was, we help them raise the money to build a state-of-the-art factory of hatchery. And we got San Diego Gas and Electric to donate 7.5 acres of land on a lagoon near Carlsbad, California. And we went out with a bunch of boats. I got a bunch of boats to go out and catch the mamas and the papas. And we had 4 tanks. We put the adults in there, and each tank was set for a different part of the year, and we keep varying it, so we always got eggs coming out. and hatched them up and then raised them to about 4 inches. And then we had 13 fishing clubs from Santa Barbara down to San Diego that had grow out facilities about the size of a boat slip. And we put the 4-inch fish in there and then raised them up to about 10 or 12 inches to release them in the ocean. So the survival rate was a whole lot higher than it would have been if you let them go at 4 inches. That's just ice cream in the water for 4 inches. Everything would eat them. So that project is still going on today. And that was a long time ago. And I'm told that over 40% of the fish caught by the fishermen today have a tag in them, which in a gill plate that says that they were raised at the hatchery. So it's a program that's been effective and it's worked, and we're so happy with it. And we built artificial reefs, and I could tell you stories about that. That was kind of fun, but we did a lot of things. We wrote legislation for the anglers and stuff, but it was a 24/7 thing. I was getting telephone calls at 11 o'clock on Saturday night. I mean, it was an experience because, like everything else I've ever done, it's always with others. And the main thing I get out of it is working with other people. I enjoy doing something with others. And we did a lot of it and a lot of projects in conservation, but I enjoyed that. And then when I got done with that, I finally got somebody to take my place, and I retired again. And then fishing magazines and everything knew my name and everything. They wanted me to write articles for their magazine just because of my name, not because of me. And I wrote a lot of stuff, and it was pure garbage. I was a terrible writer. I was absolutely terrible. And then I had a friend that from Augusta, Georgia, that was outdoor editor that we became very good friends. And he had written a bunch of books. And I told him, I was really complimenting him. I said, "You have really done a great job. And that's really a good book you just done." He said, "Well, Jimmy, you could write one too." I said, "Oh, no way I could write a book." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, how do you mean?" He said, "Well, just take some of your articles, put it together, and you got a book." And I said, "Well, I'll take a look." So I went through my files, and out of all the stories, I found maybe 4 or 5 that were halfway decent that you could make a better put in a book. And I said, he talked me into doing it. And then I ended up with about 20 stories in the first book, which was named Swimming for Our Lives. We end up in the water a lot, and there was a lot of misadventures, and we rolled down the mountain backwards in Mexico in a bus, and it almost went over the cliff. It was pretty exciting adventure. A lot of the things we did were fun, and I enjoyed doing that. And then they said, "You got to do another book." I said, "What do you mean? I wasn't even supposed to do one." He said, "No, you got to do another book." I said, "Well," I said, "the only thing I know to write about is my classmates at Annapolis." I said, "They have had adventures, experiences that are unbelievable." And I said, when you look back at what they have done, I mean, Brad Parkinson is the architect of GPS. That's worldwide. That's unbelievable. Yeah. And I said, to have a classmate that did that, and he's a super great guy. He's a retired professor from Stanford now, taught advanced mathematics there, obviously. But Brad's story is very interesting. And we had a classmate, Charlie Duke, that walked on the moon, spent 3 days on the moon. And then we had Bob McElwee, who spent 27 years as an NFL official and was a white hat in 3 Super Bowls. So there's stories in this book. There are 80 of them in this book that called Shaking Up the World.
Yeah, I've got that written down here, and that will probably go whenever I'm doing interviews on the podcast. I get on Amazon and I find the book, and I stick it in the cart, and then I'll send my wife a text message, say, "Hey, I need this book." And
I tell you what, there's an audio book of it now that was just Amazon did for us. if you'd like an audio, I've got 2 free copies of the audio book.
I appreciate it. The other guys might want one. I cannot. I've got to have paper and a book. That's my thing. That's the way that Sister Mary Bennett taught me to read, and so that's how I read. So.
Well, that's understandable, and a lot of people feel exactly the same way. But I'm told that about 40% of the people now do audio books.
Yes, they do. Now I want to go back to your time on the USS Redfin. I have 2 friends of mine, and we was just, when it popped up that you was a submariner, I got 2 friends of mine that I met when I went to U.S. Navy Explosive Ordnance Disposal School, and they were both in the Navy. One of them, he worked on a sub tender, and he told me a little bit about that. But then I had another guy I was in class with. His name was Lee Huss, and he was actually on the last conventional powered submarine in the Navy. He was on the USS Blueback, and he got off that boat right before they decommissioned it.
How about that?
But both of them had real cool submariner stories. And somebody else had a question. Okay, another submarine question for you. I presume you was on a diesel boat, right?
Right.
Okay, so you submerge, you go underwater, you're running on battery power, right?
Right.
When you want to recharge your batteries, you can come up and snorkel to charge your batteries, or
That's right.
or you can fully come up in a clear area, post a watch, and toll around and charge your batteries. That's how I thought that was done, but I just wanted to make sure I was getting that right.
Yeah, the snorkel valve is interesting because if you have 2 engines, which typically you start off charging with 2 engines, and it pulls a pretty good vacuum in the boat. You look at the altimeter, you're probably at 4,000 or 5,000 feet. And so if you're sleeping, your ears are just going like that, the pressure is going, because what happens if any water comes over the valve, it automatically shuts. And when it shuts, it starts drawing more of a vacuum in the boat. So as the battery charge progresses, they usually shut one down, and then you just have one engine that's charging, finishing up the battery charge, and then it's not so bad. It's just a little bit, but it's not so bad on your ears. But that's the way it works.
Okay. Now I'm 6'2", weigh 235 pounds. How hard would life for me been on one of those old diesel subs?
Well, I'll tell you what, I had my roommate was, and you have to understand, there were 3 of us in this room, and only one of us could stand up at a time. There was about 3 feet square that you could stand in, and other you had to be in the bump. He played basketball, and he was 6'6". He had to be in the top bunk because he couldn't straighten his legs out, but he had to have the room above him, and the other 2 of us were down below. But we had an executive officer that was 6'4". The only problem you would have is going up and down ladders. You might want to take a little weight off to climb all those ladders.
Yes, I would, because just about because I got on a couple of the museum boats, and climbing those ladders, and especially getting up, you see in the movies, the room, the conning tower where the periscope is and all that stuff, it looks big. Well, I can tell you what, on the USS Drum, sitting down there in Alabama, in Mobile, Alabama, it's not very big up in there.
No, it's not. everybody's touching shoulders because when you're actually making a periscope approach, you got a bunch of people out there working together, and they're almost bumping each other around in there because there are three people doing the plotting, and then you got the skipper and a quartermaster on the periscope, and then you've got somebody else on the wheel. So it's pretty crowded, but we did it. We didn't mind. We all smell the same.
That was going to be my next question. Stephen, I think we've got a question up in there.
Yes, we do. At Murphy's Law 86 wants to know what life was like as a submarine officer during your Navy service.
Well, like I said before, it was all about the people. And I'll tell you, the officers, enlisted men, and the chiefs, they were all tight as you could believe. And I think that was the most enjoyable part of it to me, is always about the people. And I have to tell you right now, it's been over 60 years since I was on the Redfin. I'm still in contact with some of the enlisted men. And what you think enlisted men want to still talk to an officer? They all want to communicate. And I just lost one, let's say 3 weeks ago. And he was one of the great guys. He spent 6 years on the Redfin. I was there 3.5. So we did a lot of watches together. We did a lot of talking. And after he retired from the Navy, he became a sheriff of one of the counties up around Cape Hatteras and that area up there. But we just lost him. His name was Jim Grayless, and I sure miss him because we communicated a lot. Almost every week we communicated, and he went through a few days as a couple of weeks as in hospice, and I talked to him when he was in the hospital. But yeah, but life on a submarine is really good. I tell you, the food is the best. You always have great food on a submarine. And I think the other thing about a submarine is that you're pretty much on independent duty. So you're not under control of somebody, other ship or whatever that's above you. Your skipper is the head man, and he's usually a great person. Everybody is usually pretty good, because if you don't get along with people, you're not going to be on a submarine. That's number one. Mm-hmm. And if you have claustrophobia, you're not going to be on there. We had a problem with one guy one time, and we had to come turn around, bring him back, put him ashore. He was so bad. But no, life on a submarine was really good, and it was different then than it is today, because we spent time on the surface then, and now they don't spend much time on the surface. They're pretty much submerged.
No, they don't have to come up. They got enough fuel. They can just keep sailing around the world.
Yeah.
Pop another question in there, Stephen.
No, hold on. I was wondering, Jim, my wife's uncle graduated the academy the same year as you did.
Oh.
His name was Matthew Cannon in 57.
Oh, in 57?
Yeah.
LaMonica.
No, Matthew Cannon, his name was.
Buchanan?
Cannon, Matthew Cannon.
Cannon, well.
From New Jersey.
Okay. I knew a lot of guys from New Jersey.
Yeah.
I got good friends from New Jersey. I don't know if I knew Matthew Cannon, but he doesn't. I don't think he has a story in the book. Has he passed away?
He passed away in 96. Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
But you actually had two uncles that graduated. One, Matt was the one that graduated with you. I believe the other one graduated a year or so before that.
Wow. Isn't that a coincidence?
Yeah.
Holy cow, Stephen, that's wonderful.
Small world.
That's pretty good. I've never been on these podcasts where I had anybody that knew anybody else.
As soon as I read about, when you graduated, I mentioned to my wife, she's like, oh my God, my uncle graduated in 57. I'm like,
it was an unusual, I don't know. One of the editors that wrote a review about us, and it was, I think it was the Naval Institute proceedings. You probably know that. It's kind of a semi-official it's in Annapolis, and it's they write stories about the Navy and people in the Navy and whatever. But he wrote, it said that it's like any group that Naval Academy classes have their own personality. So each class has their different personalities, and our class has a personality. And I don't know, you don't want to brag about a bunch of people, but when I look at the things that they've experienced and the things that they've accomplished, it's unbelievable. I mean, how many classes can you say had a classmate that survived Auschwitz?
Yeah.
He was a Polish Jew. His mother and father and his sister were loaded on a boxcar and taken west to Auschwitz. When they got there, the wind was blowing in the direction of the boxcars, and they could smell the burning flesh from the ovens, and they knew they didn't have much of a future. So the Nazis divided them into the men in one group, the boys in a group, and the women and the girls in another group. And Art, his name was Art Aronson, and Art found out later that his mother and his sister were executed immediately because the Nazis didn't want any females alive because they were going to breed more Jews. But when the war was over, his father went to New York and they sent him back to his home in Poland. So it was 2 years after the war before they finally were able to get together and in New York. And then they went to Texas and in Houston, and he somehow got an appointment to Annapolis, but he actually had the tattoo on the numbers on his arm like other prisoners. But he spoke 5 languages, brilliant, and good classmate. And his story is in the book, and it talks about what the men did. Everybody said, well, why didn't they try to escape? Why didn't they do something? They sabotaged the product that they were producing. And it's interesting to read about that, what they did. But I think some of these stories are so far out, you can't believe them. I had a classmate, Walt Mukow, was born in Shanghai, China in 1933. His father was a retired quartermaster from the Navy and worked at the embassy there. Well, if you remember history, the Japanese invaded northern China and started moving south. And you remember the rape of Nanking, probably.
Yes.
But
great book by Iris Chang.
Oh yeah. Well, when the bombs started coming down, the chief decided he better get his family out of there, and they got on a ship and went to the Philippines. And of course, when they got there, the Japanese were soon there. And so the story goes on with the Bataan Death March, and his father got interviewed by the Japanese who thought he was a spy, and they got put in an internment camp, and they were moved from camp to camp. And at the end, near the end of the war, the Army had heard a rumor that the Japanese planned to execute all of the 200 in that camp because they didn't have food. They were just going to kill them. And so they put together a raid, and paratroopers came in and worked with the Philippine guerrillas, and they shot the 75 Japanese guards, put them into an Amtrak, and got them across the water behind U.S. lines. And that story would make an unbelievable movie. We're not trying to hype for a movie because I don't know if the person that wrote it would want to put it in a movie, but it's really an exciting read. That all of the things, they got strafed, they found a bus one side out of it, and they loaded on the bus, and it was just crazy. But it was a really a fun story.
People talk about how hard times are, and then you read stories like that, and it's like, nah, I don't have it that bad.
Yeah, well, that's right. There's so many now. I'll tell you a fairy tale. Bruce DeMars was an assistant janitor at a bank in Chicago. He was from a very poor neighborhood. He had zero future. There's no way he was ever going to go away to school, going to do anything. But he had told the owners of the bank that, his biggest dream in life was to go to Annapolis. Well, somehow someone owed the bankers a favor, and they really liked him, and they got him an appointment to Annapolis. So he arrives there, and there's a chief hospital corpsman is checking him over. And he said, your blood pressure is too high. And he said, you go over there on that couch and lie down and sleep for a couple hours because you look like you're exhausted because you traveled all night. And he said, I'll check your blood pressure when you wake up. So he waked up and he checked his blood pressure. He said, okay, Red, you're good to go. So he got into Annapolis because an enlisted man passed him in. So,
nice.
So Bruce graduated, went to submarine school, went to the nuclear program, advanced up through the Navy, and became a 4-star admiral.
From
he
an
was
assistant,
the second successor to Rickover's in charge of the nuclear reactors and all that. And there's nothing in the story about what he did because he was in that job for 9 years and he did a lot for the reactor force in the Navy. But to me, that was a fairy tale. I just
from being
somebody that came from nothing,
janitor,
one of the top officers in the Navy, and he was a great, great guy too. And I'll tell you what happened. When I did these stories and I got through with one, if the person were alive, I would send it to them and say, check it for accuracy, make any changes you want in it, and send it back to me. So I sent it to Bruce, and I didn't get anything. So send a note, Bruce, have you had a chance to read your story yet? Have you had a chance to read your story yet? Well, eventually I got a phone call from his son. And he said, Jimmy, he said, Dad has not been doing very well lately. He said, but I read the story to him. And when I got done, he looked up to me from the pillow and he said, I want to buy that book.
Good deal. Good deal.
Yeah,
and that is an amazing story, from an assistant janitor at a bank to a 4-star admiral. I mean, yeah, that's a fairy tale.
Yeah,
it's hard to believe that that's even true. The thing of these stories in the book are true. We had a classmate that was shot down. He was a carrier pilot, was shot down over Vietnam, and he got hit, and the plane was on fire, and he was doing 850 miles an hour. And normally, you want to slow down before you eject.
Yeah,
but he couldn't slow down because his plane was on fire and he thought it was going to explode. So he ejected at 850 miles an hour. So when he went out, his left arm was pulled completely out of the socket and broken in a couple places and broken ribs, and he was just torn up. So as soon as he hit the ground, he was captured by the Vietnamese, and he was put in a cave with some other prisoners for a while, no treatment at all. And eventually they were put on a ship and taken to the Hanoi Hilton. And he spent 5 years and 7 months there and came close to dying a few times. But he made it through. And after he got out, he spent a whole year in a hospital and recovering, and actually went back to flying again after that. But that Leo Hyatt was his name. He died while we were doing the story, which was, I was glad he was around, at least part of it. We could interact, but part of it, if the classmate were not alive, when I got through editing and doing the story, I had a committee. I always like to have a committee. I had a great bunch of guys on the committee, and one woman who was retired from the Smithsonian. She was probably smarter than everybody there. And anyway, I would send the story to them and ask them to check it for accuracy and whatever. Sometimes I'd send it to 2 people, but that's what we did. We wanted to make sure we did our due diligence and got them as accurate as we possibly could. But that's basically the process we went through. that was kind of fun for me, because the thing I got of it was meeting guys that I hadn't known before, like Cannon. I didn't know him, but if he had been there, I would have probably known him, because I interacted with almost everybody, which to me was, I mean, it was everything in the world. Here, all these guys are my idols. Okay, I'm just a regular guy from the woods in South Georgia. You know, I'm at almost Mobile. I had my best fishing buddy is from Mobile. He just celebrated his 90th birthday over the weekend, and he had 85 people there. He was a great guy, but anyway, I got a lot of stories I can tell. Let me tell you a football story.
Okay.
Bob McElwee. When I announced to the class that I was going to do this book, he called me on the phone. He said, Jimmy, he said, you want some stories from the NFL? I said, oh boy, that would be terrific. So I'm going to tell you one of them. He said his job as a head referee is to be behind the quarterback and do nothing but watch a quarterback from the time the play starts until the quarterback is on the ground or the whistle blows and the play is over. He said, I don't know whether it's a touchdown been made or a completed pass or whatever, because I'm just watching the quarterback. He said, but before the play started, he said, I had a number of things I had to do. He said, I had to check the play clock, the game clock, the formation, the substitutions, and he said a couple of other things, but he said there was an extra thing I had to do when I was in Chicago. He said, when I was in Chicago, I had to reach around to my back pocket and see if my penalty flag was there. If it was not there, I'd go to the huddle. I'd stand behind number 34, and I'd say, Walter, give me my flag back. And Peyton would pull it out from under his jersey and hand it to him. He'd stick it in his pocket and get it. And nobody on television in the stands ever saw that, but of course the guys in the huddle all giggling about it. But he had a couple of stories in there about Peyton, and one about Katarina Witt. Do you remember her?
Yes.
Okay, she was that beautiful ice skater champion from East Germany. Well, when they were having a game over in West Germany and in Berlin, and I guess the directors or producers, somebody came to him before the game started and said, Bob, we've Katarina Witt is going to do the coin toss today, and we'll bring it to you before, and you can walk out of the field. And he said, okay. So when he brought her to him, and she grabbed him by the arm, and she said, Bob, I have something to tell you. She said, when we walk out on the field, everybody's going to whistle. That means booing over here in Europe. And they don't like me much over here in West Berlin. And Bob said, don't worry about that. He says, I get booed in every stadium in the United States.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yes,
Yes,
they do.
Now you want me to tell you my favorite story?
Sure.
Go ahead. We're telling stories. Let's have them. I like them.
All right. Okay. George Phillips was the skipper of an ocean-going tugboat, which is kind of unusual. You don't think an Annapolis graduate running a tugboat, but he had two chief warrant officers on board, one for the below deck spaces and then one topside. And everybody were all petty officers. They had no rookies, because working on a tugboat is very dangerous, handling fuel lines and other ships and ropes and everything. So, but his chief warrant on the topside was named Bosun Bean. And so they got an assignment to go to Philadelphia and pick up a destroyer there that's in the reserve fleet. and tow it around Florida to Texas. So they got up to Philadelphia, got the destroyer hooked up, and got out into the Atlantic Ocean. And when they got out there, it was really rough with the waves were really high. And then they got the word that there was a storm brewing down in Florida, and they decided they better not get down there with that big destroyer behind them because that would be extremely dangerous. So they pulled into Port Everglades, which is Port Angeles, which is now called Fort Lauderdale. And but the night before he got in, George started having severe abdominal pains. And his doctor on board, which is the chief hospital corpsman, naturally, checked him out and said, "Sir, when we get in, you're going to have to go to the hospital. You've got appendicitis, and it's very dangerous." So when they got in, they got all tied up and everything. The ambulance and the paramedics were up there on the pier. They came down. They loaded up the captain on a gurney, and up he goes to the hospital. So he got to the hospital, and they checked him out and decided it was gastroenteritis instead of appendicitis. And so they discharged him the next morning. So he went back to the boat, and when he got on board, they were all waiting for him. "Skipper, here we are in the best Liberty port in the United States, right here at near Miami." I said, "It's so exciting here, but we haven't been paid in 2 weeks. We have no money at all. But we found out that if you go to the Coast Guard station in Miami and take our pay records down there, they'll give you cash. You can come back and pay all of us. We can all go ashore and have a wonderful time while we're waiting out the storm. And by the way, we got you a pickup truck." So that's the way sailors are. They got everything figured out. And so George gets in the pickup truck and starts going down Highway A1A, which has got the ocean on one side and the strip malls on the other. Well, at one point, a car came out of the strip center without looking, and George swerved over to the left, and he scraped all the way down the side of a car on the inside lane. So they pull over, and the other guy is just hopping mad. And he called the police. So the police came and gave George a ticket. And they took his driver's license. They said, "We can't trust that you'll show up in court, but you come to court this afternoon at 2:00 and you can get your license back." So here George goes to court. So the judge is really an ornery character. I mean, he's bilingual because half the cases were Hispanic. So anyway, he waits around, and all of a sudden the clerk calls his name, and he stands up and he reads the charges. And the judge says, "How do you plead?" And he says, "Not guilty." The judge says, $25. He said, "Sir, let me explain." He said, $25. He said, "Sir," he said, "Bailiff, take him away." So the bailiff takes George by the arm and locks him up. So now the skipper is locked up. So he knows there's a phone on the wall. So he calls the boat and talks to his executive officer, who's Lieutenant JG. And he says, "I need you to come down here to court and bail me out. They got me locked up down here. Bring $25 and get me out." He says, "Sir, I don't have $25. "Well, pass a hat. There's got to be $25 on the boat." So a couple hours later, he shows up, and Bosun Beans and all dressed up in his dress blues and everything. And he looked at him and he said, "What in the world are you doing here?" He said, "Well, sir," he says, "I've never seen the skipper bailed out of jail before, and I wasn't going to miss this one." So about that time, the judge comes out of the courtroom, and he looks down the hall, and he sees those people talking down there. And all of a sudden, he and Bosun Bean see each other. And all of a sudden, they ran together, grabbed each other, and started jumping all up and down. And as it turned out, that they were best friends in New Jersey, graduated high school, and enlisted in the Navy. And they were on a battleship in Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. A bomb had blown both of them over the side. And those 24 years, they each thought the other was dead.
Wow.
So they just turned around and George says, okay, $5 court cost. So George goes back to the boat and he gets on the phone and he calls his wife. He says, honey, sit down. I have something to tell you. In the last 2 days, I've been in and out of the hospital and in and out of the jail, and that's all I have to say.
Very interesting stories indeed.
It's amazing.
I can't wait to get the book.
Well, I hope, and if you read it, write a review for me on Amazon.
Oh, I will. I will.
Good.
Steve, you want to pop that last question in there?
It's popped. At Haley Commons, who was the craziest classmate and who made it to the highest in rank from your class in Annapolis?
You think there's
Crazy
one
as
crazier
you?
than me? I don't know. I don't know. We had, like I mentioned, we started out with 1,160 and we graduated at 848. So some of the ones that were most craziest didn't make it to graduation. But and in terms of highest rank, I mentioned Bruce DeMars had 4 stars. We had 25 officers in my class that made admiral or general in the Air Force, and we had 3 that were 4-star admirals near the top. And one of the admirals, 3-star admirals, was on my review committee, and he's president of our class. That's Dan Cooper. And so, but today we're all like equals. It's not anybody higher ranked than the others. So we treat them all the same. But I don't know if I can think of any that were really, really crazy. But a lot of people, a lot of us were I'd say outgoing. I'll put it that way. And I know my roommate the first year there, that first summer was pretty wild. He was from Arkansas.
But sounds like a wild time. It was a good time to be in the Navy too.
It was a good time to be in the Navy. And one of the editors said that our book was history at eye level, and it's the history from the latter half of the 20th century. And if you look at all the things that happened there, from we had classmates that were in the Air Force that were actually behind the satellites that we put up. When you remember when Gary Powers was shot down in the U-2,
Yes.
over Russia and was captured. Well, that shut down that surveillance system, but we had to know what was going on behind the Iron Curtain. But a group of my classmates were the ones that were responsible for putting these satellites together, program them, and one of them, who retired as a major general in the Air Force, told me, he said, you think about it today and it's crazy. He said, but if they told me that they wanted a certain object, he said, I had to arrange to turn the whole satellite like that to see it. Nowadays, you program it digital or whatever, but he said we had to program it before we launched it so it would turn to get a certain angle to give them the shots. Now,
Yes.
one of the things you're going to see in the book, you're going to see 3 photographs in there that were taken from our spy satellites over Russia, and there's one of their launch platforms there, and there's one of the Kremlin, and that just shows, hey, here we are, and here you are, and don't mess with us. But it was kind of fun. Our class was the last one to put any officers in the Air Force. Before the Air Force Academy started producing officers, at West Point and Annapolis contributed to the Air Force officers. And the following year, Air Force Academy started producing officers, graduates. And so we didn't have to do that anymore.
Okay. All right. We're going to take a little pause here and kind of give a little brief on our mission here. MisFitNation, once again, we thank you for joining us this evening. Listen to some of these great stories from Jim Paulk, but I'm going to talk about something a little more serious. If you're there, you're feeling down, and you don't feel like it, you want to go on with life, you have options. Pick up that phone, dial 988. If you're a veteran, take option 1. Somebody on the other end of that line is going to talk to you and get you the help that you need. I know it works. Someone very dear to me used it. It works. They are doing great now, and that got them over that hump. So remember, tomorrow will not be as beautiful if you're not in it. We want you here. We love you. And if you don't want to talk to the people on that hotline, email me, Jake@themisfitnation.com. Email Stephen at themisfitnation.com, or info@themisfitnation.com. Leave your name and number. We'll call you and we'll talk. We love you all. Thank you. Okay, now we got some questions for you, Jim.
Okay.
First of all, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, maybe hear some more Navy stories, or wants to get with you about writing another book, how do they get in contact with you?
Well, of course, we're on Facebook, and they can get me at Jim Paulk, or they can get me at James D. Paulk, Jr. Author. I have 2 Facebook pages. Or they can contact me at Jim D. Paulk at yahoo.com. Jim D. Paulk at yahoo.com. And I'll be happy to respond to them. And I talk to a lot of people. I think I spend a lot of time every day communicating. And I don't know. I guess that's my thing now. And I'm doing another book right now. And believe it or not, it's How I Found You. It's a book of love and relationships, because I wanted to. I mean, the relationships in that class, but their relationship between 2 little girls, and of course there are a lot of between spouses, and there were some that maybe had 2 marriages that didn't work out, but now they found somebody, and I think the guy that found my helper is the best story, and I'm going to make that number 1 in the book, and he is just. It's just an unbelievable that here these 2 are getting together in their 50s, and that just touched my heart. But there are a lot of good stories in here. They're different, and it's just like in this book, it had to be something special to get into the book. It can't be in a book and just be kind of blah. It's got to have a little bit of a twist to it. Kind of like my first book, Rolling Down a Mountain Backwards in Mexico. You got to do some crazy things, and in order to get in the book. But
now I gotta. There probably wasn't any drinking involved with that, was there?
Say that again.
There probably wasn't any drinking involved with that bus going down backwards down the hill.
Well, there was when we got to the top. I'll tell you, we had to. we only had a 40 horsepower motor. Okay, we had a 40 horsepower motor, and we had 4 men in it, and it only had 1 seat, and it had a lawn chair that somebody sat in. The other 2 sat on the floor. Okay, man. we had to take extra fuel in 5-gallon containers. We had to take water and all the stuff. We had to take enough to last for 9 days. Okay, so what happened is, trying to go up this really severe mountain road that curved with a cliff on one side and an embankment on the other. The brakes were stopped. It was stalled. The engine was stalled out, and we put a rock under the wheel. But all of a sudden, the guy in front is going by us sideways, saying, "I lost the brakes," and he's going down the mountain, and 3 of us are chasing him. But we had to load all that stuff down and get the bus pushed to the top, and then go back down and bring all that stuff and haul it to the top. And there were a few beers until we got to the top, I'll tell you that.
I'm sure there were. I'm
I'm
sure there were. Okay, one more question for you, and we ask this of all of our guests. What are 3 non-negotiables that Jim has to do every day for his day to be complete?
What a non-negotiable. Well, I say my prayers every day. I lost my wife 9 years ago, and I tell you what, the greatest honor in my life was to have been married to her. I never would have met her had I not gone to Annapolis. So that was important. So I think getting in touch with my friends and answering their questions and everything, that's non-negotiable. So and I think communicating with my family. I have a lot of family here. When we lived in California for 37 years, and then it just got to the point where it wasn't working for us anymore, and so we decided to move back to Georgia. And my brother lived here, and so we moved to Kingsland, where my brother lived, and all 3 of our children came back here, and 3 out of 4 of our grandkids came back. And now we're having great grandkids. And I'm just, I love my family, and I enjoy seeing them. I enjoy talking with them. But I think those things, my family is so important, and my friends are so important. They're far more important than I am. I look at myself as being, and my helper tells me, don't talk like that. And I said, well, that's the way I feel. I feel like everybody is somebody. I'm just, I guess I'm around. So, and the other thing I have to do is I have to write every day.
Okay.
I was a horrible writer, and now I find myself writing. I'm better at it now, but I'm not somebody that can just absolutely put something special on paper. I have to work at it, and work at it real hard to make it halfway decent. And but so I try and write every day, and I don't know. I just I'm busy. I seem like at 10 o'clock at night I'm still busy, and I would say I do a lot of thinking, and maybe that sounds stupid, but I can't turn my brain off, and I've got all these different details and all these things. Like I've got 3 books. I've just finished an audio book on the first book. We're working on marketing the second book, and we're writing the 3rd book. So here I am, almost 92 years old, and I don't know, I'm doing all this stuff. And why am I doing it? I don't know why I'm doing it.
And our producer put up.
So your children, your grandchildren, and your great grandchildren have memories of you, and they know about you, and they can talk about you. That's why you do it.
Yeah, I do. I really do. And I'm just I got two new great granddaughters, and one is 2.5, and the other is 1. And I just absolutely adore them. And I have so much fun. They come over, and I'm like their buddy. Okay, I'm not the grandfather or whatever. I'm their friend, and they come over, and they won't leave me around and tell me what they want me to do, and I do it. So.
That's
That's
what this is all about.
Yeah, that's what
it is. It is.
I'm a grandfather to a couple kids, and I tell you what, it is wonderful. It is amazing. Well, Jim, we have really enjoyed having you this evening. I love the stories, and this hour has flown by. But yeah, I love hearing those old sea stories and stuff that went on, and it's like had a friend of mine. He says that not all war stories involve war. And we appreciate you coming on here this evening and telling us some war stories out of your book. I was really interested in buying it before. Now I'm really interested in buying it. So I'm going to get one of them and thumb through it. And if I'm ever down that way in Georgia, I'll probably stop by and have you sign it.
You better believe it. I'll be happy to do it. I'll even give you a beer if you want one.
Well, you might have to twist my arm just a little bit, but
Oh.
But hey, Jim, It's been amazing. And thank you for coming on here.
It was
Thank
great.
you for having me.
Great hearing those stories.
You bet.
I appreciate you coming on. Have a good night, man.
You have a good night, Misfit Nation. We love you.
Love you too.
Until next time.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Stay in touch.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.